The wind moans across the cliffs of Tukara, a small village clinging to the edge of a restless sea. The horizon glows with lightning, and the waves slam against the rocks as if trying to break free from the ocean's grip. Rain falls sideways, stinging like needles. For as long as anyone can remember, the storm has never truly stopped. They say it began with one sound, one heartbeat of thunder that came not from the sky, but from a drum. The scene slows. Through the mist, a shadowed figure appears. Chief Naru Ocean, strong and proud, his chest bare and marked with paint. He stands before the roaring sea, gripping a massive wooden drum carved with symbols of the gods. His people watch in fear from behind. The chief called to the spirits that night. The crops had died, the sea had turned against the nets, and his people were starving. So he begged the sky for mercy. The chief raises his arms. He beats the drum once, a low, deep note that shakes the ground. Again and again. The rhythm grows, echoing through the cliffs. The wind screams back in answer. Then, silence. The sea stills for one long breath. The chief lowers his drum. Then the storm strikes. Thunder explodes. Waves crash higher than the huts. Lightning claws across the sky. The people scream as rain floods the earth. The chief is swallowed by the storm he called, and the drum's final echo fades beneath the thunder. Generations later, the same cliffs, the same endless rain. Children huddle under a cracked shelter, eyes wide as Elder Kanu, his face lined and weathered like driftwood, tells the tale, softly. And so the chief's drumbeat called the storm. But it never left. It watches us still. Every wave, every rumble of thunder. It remembers him. The children whisper to each other, frightened yet fascinated. One brave boy asks, "But Elder, when will it stop?" Kanu gazes out to sea. The horizon is dark, pulsing with distant lightning. Steady, almost rhythmic. When someone listens to what the storm's been trying to say, the rain falls harder. The sea murmurs like a distant drum, echoing through the air. And so the story begins, in a village that forgot peace, beneath a sky that forgot mercy. The sound of the drum fades beneath the waves, steady, haunting, eternal. The storm still breathes over Tukara, softer now, but constant. A wet whisper that clings to everything. The roofs drip, the fields drown, and the villagers walk with shoulders bent as if carrying invisible weight. A single figure moves through the rain. Mara Ocean, 25, strong but tired, her eyes sharp like her grandfather's were in the old stories. Her dark hair is braided tight against the wind. She walks the muddy path between sagging huts, carrying a woven basket of fish. The people nod as she passes, some in greeting, others in fear. To the people of Tukara, she is both blessing and burden. The blood of the man who brought the storm, and, perhaps, the one who can end it. At the edge of the village stands Elder Kanu, now older, his back curved but his spirit unbroken. He watches Mara as she returns from the shore. "The sea gave little today, I see. It's getting worse, Elder. The nets tear before we even pull them up. It's like the sea spits our work back at us." Kanu sighs, staring toward the horizon, where the storm clouds twist like living things. The sea remembers, child. It remembers what was promised and never returned. Mara looks down, gripping her basket tighter. "You mean him?" "My grandfather," Kanu nods slowly. "His spirit stirs with every wave. The drumbeat still echoes in this rain." "You've heard it too, haven't you?" Mara doesn't answer, but the faint tremor in her eyes tells the truth. A small gathering inside a thatched hall. The villagers sit in a circle, arguing over maps drawn on wet parchment. The wind rattles the walls as voices rise. We can't keep living like this. The sea's taken the east fields. Next will be our homes. Leave? You would abandon the graves of your ancestors? The sea gives life. It must be respected, not fled from. Respect doesn't feed our children. The storm doesn't stop. It won't stop. The crowd murmurs, torn between fear and pride. All eyes turn to Mara when someone says her name. What does the chief's blood think? Mara freezes. The room goes silent except for the patter of rain. I think I'm tired of watching everyone suffer because of a story no one understands. A gasp moves through the room. Elder Kanu raises a hand to calm them. Careful, child. Stories are not just words. They are the bones of who we are. Then our bones are breaking, Elder. Her voice cracks. She looks around the room, at faces lined with exhaustion, at children too quiet for their age. My grandfather wanted to save his people. I don't believe he meant for this storm to stay. The villagers exchange uncertain looks. Some seem moved. Others glare, fearful of her defiance. You talk like someone cursed. Maybe I am. But curses can be broken. Later that night, Mara sits outside her hut, listening to the rain. The sea hums in the distance, not angry, just endless. Inside, a candle flickers beside an old chest carved with her family's crest. She runs her fingers over the wood. Every ocean child was told never to open the chief's chest. Inside, they said, were the last things he touched before the storm took him. His journal, his drumsticks, and his pride. Mara hesitates. The thunder rolls far away, deep and steady. She lifts the lid. Inside lies a bundle of aged parchment tied with a faded cord. Her grandfather's journal. The ink is smudged, the pages water-stained, but the writing still breathes. A line scrawled across the first page. If the sea takes me, it is because I dared to speak to it. Mara closes the journal quickly, her breath shaking. Outside, lightning flashes across the cliffs, and for a moment, just a heartbeat. She thinks she hears a faint, distant rhythm under the thunder. A slow, deep boom, then another, like a drum. She steps to the doorway, eyes wide, staring toward the horizon. The storm has not moved in generations, but tonight it feels closer. In Takara, the past never stays buried. It rolls with the thunder, waiting for someone brave or desperate enough to listen. The drumbeat echoes faintly beneath the sound of rain. The wind has changed. It no longer just howls. It whispers through the cracks of Mara's hut, through the gaps in the cliffs, through her dreams. She hasn't slept in 3 nights. When the storm grows quiet in Takara, that is when the danger begins. The silence carries things. Old sounds, old promises, old ghosts. Mara lies awake, her eyes open in the dim light. The rain has slowed to a drizzle, and thunder rolls far away, like a giant breathing in its sleep. She turns her head toward the open journal beside her. Her grandfather's words crawl across the page like something alive. The sea listens, but it never forgets. I offered it peace, and it asked for blood. Mara shuts the journal, but the words stay in her mind. SFX. A faint boom echoes outside. Slow, deliberate, she sits up. Another boom, then silence. Her pulse races. She stands, steps barefoot to the door, and peers into the night. The village sleeps. The ocean glows faintly under a sliver of moonlight, calm but waiting. Grandfather? The next thunder answers, softer, almost rhythmic. Mara walks along the soaked cliffs toward the shrine where Elder Kanu prays. She holds the journal close, her knuckles white. Kanu kneels before the carved stones, his lips moving in prayer. When he sees her, he gives a weary smile. You've been hearing it, haven't you? Mara's silence is enough of an answer. The sea calls its own. No, It's just the storm. The same storm we've had all our lives. Storms don't remember names. But curses do. Kanu looks toward the ocean. His expression is both fear and reverence. The chief's spirit made a promise he could not keep. Until that promise is answered, the sea will never rest. And you think the answer is me. Kanu studies her face. The same strong jaw, the same eyes as her grandfather. The sea doesn't choose with fairness. It chooses with memory. Mara looks down, heart pounding. Rain drums lightly on the roof. Mara sits with the journal again, this time reading deeper. The storm has a voice. It speaks through rhythm. It demands a bargain, not of gold, but of heart. Her hand trembles. She flips the page. I feared to give what it wanted, so it took what it could. Her breath catches. A drop of water lands on the page. Not from the roof, but from her own tears. Every word she read felt like a door opening to something vast and watching. Suddenly, the hut creaks. The wind outside grows sharp again. Mara glances up. The candlelight flickers wildly. Then, the sound returns. SFX. Boom! 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 It's faint, steady, coming from the sea. Mara steps outside, the rain soaking her instantly. Her bare feet sink into the mud as she walks toward the shore. The wind pulls her hair loose, lightning flashing above. The rhythm grows louder. Each boom vibrates in her chest. She stops near the cliffs, staring at the waves. The horizon seems to breathe. Dark shapes rolling beneath the surface, like shadows waiting to rise. Her voice cracks through the storm. What do you want from me? The storm hesitates, just for a second. Then the wind howls, and thunder crashes like an answer. We've suffered enough. If you're angry, be angry at him, not us. Her words vanish into the roar, but then a strange stillness falls. The sea flattens. The wind pauses. Then comes one single deep drumbeat. It echoes across the cliffs and through Mara's bones, steady and human. A heartbeat that isn't hers. She falls to her knees, trembling. And in that moment, she understood. The storm was not blind. It was listening. Lightning flashes, and for an instant, she swears she sees a figure standing far out on the water, tall and motionless, holding something that gleams like wet wood. Then it's gone. Mara's breath shakes. She backs away slowly, eyes wide with terror and awe. Grandfather, what did you do? Thunder rolls once more. Gentle this time, almost sorrowful. She clutches the journal to her chest, as if it might speak again. From that night on, Mara could no longer sleep without hearing the storm's heartbeat. A rhythm that was not rage, but remembrance. The faint sound of the drum echoes under the rain. Steady, patient, waiting. The morning fog wraps the coast in a pale shroud. The ocean murmurs like something half asleep, its voice heavy with memory. Mara stands at the edge of the cliffs, her cloak whipping in the wind. In her hands, she holds her grandfather's journal, open to the final page. The words tremble in the breeze. The sea will not rest until the drum is struck once more, and the promise fulfilled. For years, the people of Tukara believed the chief's drum was buried with him. No one dared disturb his grave. No one but her. Mara closes the book. Her jaw sets. The storm is building again, and the waves below crash harder each minute. Behind her, footsteps approach. Rio, her childhood friend, carrying a rope and a lantern. His clothes are soaked, but his smile is stubborn. If I don't come back, make sure they remember I said this was a bad idea. I'll carve it on the memorial stone myself. They share a brief, nervous smile. Then Elder Kanu joins them, leaning heavily on his staff. Tessa, the outsider trader who arrived months ago, follows, skeptical eyes scanning the cliffs. You really believe a drum caused all this? Storms come and go. That's nature, not curses. The sea here does not follow nature, child. It follows debt. The group begins the slow climb down the cliff path toward the burial ground, a narrow strip of land where stone markers jut out from the water like broken teeth. The tide gnaws at them, hungry and patient. The wind howls. The graves are half buried in sand and seaweed. The water laps at their boots. Mara kneels before a cracked stone engraved with her family's crest. Her hands tremble as she brushes away the mud. Forgive me, grandfather, but this can't stay buried any longer. She starts to dig. Rio joins her. The others follow. Their hands tear through wet earth, through shells and roots. The smell of salt and decay fills the air. The waves inch closer. The sky darkens. Then, the sound of wood. Mara freezes. Beneath the soil lies a large drum, half-rotted, its surface cracked and covered in barnacles. Faintly, they pulse. Tiny movements, like breathing. Tessa stumbles back, startled. It's alive? Elder Kanu's face pales. Not alive. Remembering, Mara reaches out. Her fingers hover over the drum's surface. It hums faintly, a deep vibration that travels up her arm. Her eyes widen. Chief Naru Ocean stands on the shore, his face streaked with rain and tears. The villagers beg behind him. His hands tremble over the drum. Take me, not them. Hear my plea. He strikes the drum, once, twice, and the sea answers with thunder. A towering wall of water rises, glowing blue from within. A voice echoes through the storm, ancient, hollow, full of sorrow. What will you give for your people's peace? Anything. My soul, my life, whatever you ask. Then your heart. Naru hesitates, terrified. He drops the drumsticks. The storm surges. He falls to his knees. You called me, but you will not finish what you began. The debt remains. Lightning consumes the scene, and everything goes white. Mara gasps, stumbling backward. The wind screams around her. He didn't finish it. The bargain, he couldn't do it. Then the sea took what it could. His spirit, his promise, and our peace. Rio kneels beside the drum, staring at the strange, faint pulse beneath its cracked skin. If it's waiting for the heart, he didn't give. What happens when it gets one? No one answers. The storm begins to close in, clouds rolling faster, the waves climbing higher. Mara lifts the drum with both hands. The barnacles shiver and fall away like dust. The air hums, charged. Mara, don't! This is what it wants. It's what it's been waiting for. Elder Kanu grips her shoulder. Child, the sea does not ask. It demands. If you answer it, it may never let go. Mara meets his eyes, fear flickering behind her resolve. Then maybe it's time someone finally listened. A roar of thunder shakes the cliff. Rain explodes down. The villagers' torches on the distant shore flicker out one by one. The chief had begged the sea to save his people. His granddaughter would beg it to forgive them. Lightning flashes across Mara's face. Half courage, half sorrow. She presses her palm against the drum. It vibrates once, then stops. Silence. Then, faintly, from far out across the dark water, comes the sound of another drum beat, answering hers. One slow, deep pulse that rolls across the ocean like thunder. What did you just wake up? Mara doesn't speak. Her eyes are locked on the horizon, where lightning forms the outline of something massive rising from the sea. The unburied truth had been waiting, and now it was listening. The drumbeat continues, joined by the wind, two rhythms merging into one, like a warning or a call. The wind had no shape anymore. It howled through the bones of the village, tearing at what was left. Roofs, branches, prayers. The sea had risen to claim what it once gave, turning the earth into trembling mud. In the midst of that chaos stood a single figure, drenched and shaking, clutching the old drum as though it were the last truth in the world. Each drop of rain hit the surface like tiny hands, tapping for attention. Lightning split the horizon, white against endless gray. The air smelled of salt and smoke and memory. It felt as if the sky itself remembered what had been promised long ago, and had come to collect. The figure lifted the drum. Her arms quivered, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that came before. The first strike echoed through the storm, low, deep, and human. The thunder hesitated, as though the sky was listening. Another strike followed, then another. With every beat, the sea rose higher, churning in rhythm. The world had turned into a great heart, pulsing with grief, and then the water moved. It gathered, twisted and lifted, until a shape emerged. Not fully man, not fully storm, but something vast and ancient. Its eyes were the color of the deep, glowing faintly, like embers beneath a tide. The figure did not speak in words, but its voice was everywhere. In the crack of lightning, in the roll of thunder, in the air between heartbeats. The storm asked a question, not with language, but with weight. Why had it been called? Why had it been left to rage alone for generations? The figure stood still, soaked and trembling, staring into the shifting face of the storm. The answer came not from her lips, but from her heart, a thought, heavy and clear. Because you were never finished, because no one ever said goodbye. The sea trembled. Lightning revealed faces carved into the cliffside, the remains of old statues, guardians from another age. They seemed to watch, silent witnesses to what was unfolding. The drum's skin shone with a faint light. She lifted her hands again, striking it harder, her palms bleeding against the wood. The sound was no longer just thunder. It was sorrow. It was surrender. It was love. Each beat cracked something open, in the air, in the water, in her own chest. The storm seemed to remember what it once was, a guardian, not a curse. The waves slowed, the wind softened, the great shape of the sea leaned closer, not as a monster, but as something tired, longing to rest. The figure's voice broke through the quiet. It was not a plea, it was a promise. She offered herself freely, not to pay for the past, but to release it. The sea understood. Light burst from the water, white and gold, spreading across the horizon. The waves fell away, revealing calm beneath. The thunder faded, each roll quieter than the last, until there was only the faint sound of rain. When the calm returned, the figure was gone. The drum lay on the wet ground, split clean through. The tide washed gently around it, as though afraid to touch it too soon. The others who had come to the cliff knelt in silence. No words could carry what they felt. Only the stillness could. Above them, the clouds began to drift apart. The first sunlight in years broke through, soft and warm, touching the sea with gold. The storm was over, but the memory of its voice remained, deep in the wind, in the slow rhythm of the waves, in the hearts of those who watched. The sea no longer raged, it breathed, and in that quiet, it was clear that something sacred had been mended. The morning came softly, as if the sky was afraid to wake the world. For the first time in living memory, the sea was still. No waves clawed at the shore. No thunder rolled across the horizon. The air smelled clean, not of salt and smoke, but of earth and beginning. The villagers stepped out of their homes one by one, blinking into the pale light. They had forgotten how sunlight felt. It touched their faces gently, like an old friend returning after years of silence. The sound of dripping water was all that remained of the endless storm, a quiet reminder that the rain had not gone, only changed. Down by the shore, the broken drum rested on the sand. Its surface was smooth now, dry and calm. Around it, the tide moved in and out, slow and careful, as though cradling something sacred. No one spoke. Words would have felt too loud for such a moment. They only looked at the sea, at the sky, at the drum that had called an end to centuries of grief. The elder was the first to kneel. His knees sank into the wet sand, his eyes fixed on the horizon. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. He said that the curse was ended, but the storm itself had not truly left. It had only learned peace. It would live now not in the clouds, but in their hearts. A memory shaped like a heartbeat. Some wept. Others smiled through tears. Children ran to the edge of the water, their laughter cutting through the stillness like light breaking through fog. They had never seen the sea without fury. To them, the calm felt like a miracle. They chased the waves that now came gently to meet their feet, whispering instead of roaring. Further inland, people began to rebuild. They cleared away the fallen wood, patched their roofs, and opened the windows that had been sealed for years. The air filled with the sounds of hammers, laughter, and quiet singing. The village had been beaten, but not broken. It was learning to breathe again. Up on the hill, a young man watched the sea from the place where the storm had taken her. The wind lifted his hair, soft and cool. He held the memory of her last act close, feeling both loss and peace tangled in the same breath. He whispered to the air, not her name but gratitude. The sea answered with a gentle breeze. The elder joined him, leaning on his staff. Together they watched the horizon, where the clouds still lingered, not dark anymore, but pale and slow-moving. The storm never truly left, the elder said. It only changed shape. It lives in what she taught us, that peace is not the absence of storms, but the courage to face them. The words carried through the air, landing softly on the wind. As days turned to weeks, the village grew green again. New crops sprouted in the wet soil, stronger than before. Houses rose higher on the hills, built not in fear of the sea, but in respect of its strength. The people no longer cursed the rain. They thanked it, and sometimes, on quiet nights, they could hear a faint sound beneath the waves. Not thunder, not wind, but a heartbeat, a slow, gentle rhythm, steady and patient. It was said to be the echo of the drum, still watching over them, reminding them of what was lost and what was saved. The children would stop their play to listen, eyes wide, wondering if it was her spirit still singing through the sea. The elders would smile and say nothing. Some storms, they would tell them later, never leave, because they are not meant to. They stay to teach, to protect, to remind. When the sun sank below the horizon that evening, the sky glowed gold and violet over the calm sea. The last drops of rain fell softly onto the sand, each one catching the light like a tiny spark. The storm had ended, but its memory had become something beautiful. Years passed, and the story of the storm became legend. The villagers spoke of it in the evenings, around fires that burned soft and steady. They told their children of the sea that once roared without mercy, and of the night it learned to rest. The ocean had changed. It no longer carried rage, but memory. Its waves moved in gentle rhythm, like the steady breath of someone finally asleep after a lifetime of weeping. The winds that once tore roofs away now whispered through the trees, humming a tune that sounded almost like a drumbeat, faint but alive. People began to notice the small miracles left behind. The fields grew faster. The air stayed cooler in the summer and warmer in the rain. The tide, once unpredictable, now followed a calm and faithful pattern. It was as if the sea itself had chosen to keep watch over the land it once tried to destroy. Children who had never known fear of the storm played freely on the beach. They ran to the water's edge, tossing shells and laughter into the waves. Sometimes, when the tide turned, they would stop and listen. Far beyond the horizon, carried by the wind, came a sound, soft and deep, like a heart remembering how to beat. Elders smiled when they heard it. They knew it was not thunder. It was something older, something kind. At night, when the moon hung low and silver over the water, the sea seemed to shimmer with unseen light. Some said it was her spirit, still keeping her promise, the coast from the storms that might come again. Others said it was the ocean breathing, alive with peace at last. What it was, no one feared it any more. The village of Tukara endured. It learned, as she once had, that some storms never truly leave because they are not meant to. They stay to remind, protect, to teach, to guide. And far out of the sea, when the wind rose just right, the people would hear it again. A slow, steady rhythm, a sound between thunder and heartbeat, a memory turned into music. The drumbeat that once summoned a storm now sang of calm, a promise carried forever on the wind.